Hey there, Chelsea fans. I just wanted to give you a quick update before the pod starts that we have launched our very own website. That's right. Now you can go to londonisbluepodcast.com or londonbluepod.com so you can sign up for early access to all of our new episodes. You can give us your feedback and request guests and even support the pod to help us grow. Thanks again for all of your support. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to the London is Blue podcast, a podcast made for the fans, by the fans, celebrating the champions of England. Come on, you Blues. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to the London is Blue podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and my compatriots joining me are Dan and Nick. Dan, how excited are you to have the Premier League season back in your life?
You know, it reminds me of waking up for a Saturday morning because you were off from school, and so you were going to go watch cartoons and maybe have a bowl of sugary cereal. And now it's a game of football and cold beer and getting to enjoy the beautiful game again.
It's like seeing extended family. Like I go to the chapter bar here in Kansas City. It's like seeing extended family that you actually want to see. I mean, it's very exciting. Very pumped about the new year.
It is. The new season is officially underway. We had kind of the taste test previews of preseason, but we didn't have an international competition this summer, really. You had the Copa America, but most of the big stars are missing, so it's finally back. Under the lights, the excitement is there. It's a great feeling. So in this episode, we'll be taking a look back at the season opener at home against the Swans before looking ahead to the first big clash of the season, kind of for everyone, against Manchester City. So to kick us off here, we have Swansea City, season opener at Stamford Bridge, Saturday match. It's the headline of the day. I mean, the stage was set, Nick, for this to just be Chelsea's opportunity to show our statement of intent to recapture the Premier League crown.
Yeah. Everything kind of looked like it was going to line up properly. And this is kind of the benefit of being champions, is you usually get this match to open up the following year. So I was expecting a victory, and then right before the match started, there was a rumor that Courtios hurt himself, and that Begovic would be starting because he hurt either his hamstring or the back of his knee. And from there, you kind of saw the signs that this might not be our day. So unfortunately, it didn't have the best start ever.
What about you, Dan? I mean, you see Michael Oliver's referee on the sheet. You know that we trounced Swansea, just beat them up last year, 5-1. Costa with this hat trick. Again, the vibes were still pretty strong going into it.
Yeah, you figured that a healthy Costa for 90 minutes would mean that Chelsea were going to dine on Swan for their appetizer, their breakfast, their mid-afternoon meal, and snack in between dinner and lunch, and then maybe a dessert as well. And it was there. It was there as an opportunity, and it just wasn't capitalized on, for lack of a better word.
Well, the Chelsea team lineup sheet, I mean, this is essentially a carbon copy of how we played the majority of our games last year. Courtois in goal, Azpilicueta, Terry Cahill, Ivanovic in the back, Matic and Fabregas are the two holding midfield, and then you have Hazard, Oscar, Willian as the attacking trio with Costa up top. I mean, this is exactly the lineup that I expected us to see, mainly because they have the most minutes together. A bit of a slow start though, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know kind of what this team's going through right now. It kind of looks to me like there's still the going through the motions aspect that Jesus Martinez brought up last week on the pod. In particular, got off to another kind of slow, methodical start, which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, realize that I think the overwhelming theme of this pod is that it's the first match of the season. Let's not panic. I mean, there's no reason to panic at all. But still, there are some worrying signs. It wasn't necessarily a brilliant start, and then the game kind of livened up once Oscar, quote unquote, nailed his free kick and started the scoring.
From there, I mean, it was all on Oscar's shoulders, I think, in the first half. But, Dan, I guess, were there any, I don't know, surprises to you, maybe, kind of with how players showed up right out of the gate? Did you think that maybe Victor Moses should have got in? Or are you happy with the lineup?
Oh, I think you made the point, carbon copy of last season. And, this lineup played a very long time together. And I think the concern that many individuals had leading up into this match was that we weren't maybe going with the team that had won the champions won our championship last season, and then in turn that we had kind of experimented with some different configurations, and now getting this lineup back together, I would not have expected such a malaise almost in the way that the majority of the team seemed to move around the pitch. I think that Costa was not getting any type of service forward, and then when he did, there wasn't really any final bite. Hazard, for the first portion of the game, didn't really look like he was running at 100%. Matic was having to push back a little against some of the defenders, which normally he is the one just pushing and plowing through. Fabregas, we didn't see a whole lot of, and it was definitely a muted level of excitement where maybe the fans and the manager were more excited for the match and more up for it than some of the players.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, Dan, I think the fans were brilliant in the first half. You could definitely hear them through, all the way on TV, and could start to hear some of the excitement build. And in the second half, particularly, the atmosphere was a little bit less than positive, but I think there was just a growing frustration with maybe some lack of transfer activity and squad strengthening comparative to maybe some other top squads in the Premier League. That this is basically what we got when you look at the season. I love Victor Moses. I think that he still will have a huge role to play in the season. Will provide some strength and depth. Kurt Zouma, very much the same. But past that, I mean, Ramirez, yeah. I mean, there's really 14 total players that are looking to see the pitch. Begovic excluded, but Begovic now has a pretty big role to play, huh, Braden?
Yeah, Begovic, I guess if you want to jump to the that kind of point, that's like the worst case scenario, is having to come off the bench and immediately face a penalty kick. But he'll get another 90 minutes. So training this week, he'll have plenty of time to prepare mentally, work with the first team backline and get ready for the Manchester City match that'll be next week. But yeah, Begovic, for kind of what he was thrown into with Courtois, a bit of an erratic play. I thought he did really well. He had a couple really big saves in the second half. But overall, I was really impressed. But we can talk about Courtois a little specifically later. Interesting kind of moments, I guess, as the game went on. I just want to touch on the Oscar goal, because I don't know if anyone else saw this, and I kind of want to get your opinion, Dan. But when he scored, he looked mad. He looked like he was mad at somebody or something, and until all the guys surrounded him, celebrated him, then he finally jogged over to the fans and did his, I don't know, L or backwards L to the fans that he usually does when he scores, but it's a weird reaction from Oscar, in my opinion.
Maybe he wasn't as beautiful as most Brazilian goals are. Maybe he's a little more frustrated at himself, but I think a goal is a goal, and I think that we've seen a lot of free kicks almost go his way during the preseason. So I think if he can continue to develop form on the free kick specifically, we're really alternation between him and Fabregas. If we can kind of identify that Oscar will be the sole free kicker and has that opportunity to really nail the goals in, I think that would be a very nice cementing of that part of our game versus the alternation of it and hoping that we find some level of consistency with it.
Yeah, I look at Oscar, and maybe the reaction was a part of this. Maybe there's something else at play, but I looked at him as someone who had just a tremendous amount to prove going into this year. And there were times last year where he would kind of float in and out mentally from a match where you could tell he wasn't all the way in it. Maybe not giving as much as he possibly could. Not to be hypercritical or anything, but that just was my opinion on what I was looking at. And yesterday I saw a fully dialed in, fully chip on shoulder Oscar, and that's a scary player if he's able to dial it in like that, because his talent is unquestioned. It's sometimes the commitment to the cause where I think Eden Hazard's kind of learned that side of his game, and the beautiful play kind of follows his overall effort and enthusiasm for playing. I think that is Oscar's next step now, and you hope that you see a consistency from him this year that is on par with what we saw yesterday. It's unfortunate for him that he got subbed off due to the red card, but I thought he was by far and away our best player.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting to see what a full 90 minutes would have looked like with Oscar in that match.
He was definitely the live point, but I guess the good news is when you attack a team enough, you also tend to get a little bit lucky or fortunate, and that's exactly what's happened on Willian's goal. The fact that it takes that friendly a deflection and puts it in the back post side netting, you kind of felt like at that point, like momentum was coming back. We had just conceded an unlucky goal at the other end, and not a minute later, Chelsea come back and you're like, all right, look, it's the luck of the champions. Like, this is what we can expect, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get everybody's best shot. This is especially true from Swansea, who I think, before covering anything else, you have to give Swansea an incredible amount of credit for how they played yesterday. They were very positive, very enthusiastic. Jefferson Montero was by far and away, even better than Oscar, the best player on the pitch. Was insane how he just burned Ivanovic over and over and over. And this is how these games go. We're going to find very few teams in the Premier League this year that just quit after we score a goal. This is how it's going to be. So it was good that a few minutes later, Willian was able to somehow score. I've watched that replay 100 times now, and I'm not sure how it worked, but it was good to see that we fought back after that and kind of came with the second wind.
Yeah, no, it was a good response. I definitely agree with that. You get into halftime at 2-1. I'm sure Mourinho kind of was lighting the fire under him a little bit, saying, yeah, you're winning, but it's not good enough. So naturally, Chelsea come out in the second half, still flat, and then Courtois goes and unfortunately gets himself stuck in a bad situation to be in as a goalkeeper. Brings down Bafétimbi Gomis just inside the box, and is shown the straight red by Michael Oliver. Dan, I don't know, kind of walk us through that play and how you saw everything go down.
Well, it's a great opening day gift. I think about maybe there was a gift basket that Michael Oliver could have given instead, but a red card is one way to welcome back the new season. Definitely a place where a couple of players maybe were a little out of position, weren't maybe paying attention to the direction of the ball as it was kind of knocked forward, and Willian and Ivanovic were kind of really a little maybe not on pace with where the ball was heading, and Courtois was basically there between him and probably a sure goal for Gomis, and just made enough contact to really kind of get him caught up. And even though the ball looked like it was probably heading away from the goal at that point, it was unfortunate. I think he was put in a bad position by those who were really supposed to be kind of marking some defense. It doesn't, I think, fully excuse him, but I think it was a collective, failure of defense that led to, putting Asmir in, putting that in the position of having to block a penalty kick, with about a minute or two's notice, and really the leveling of the game.
I personally blame Willian about 110% because he was standing behind every single defender. And that's like the rule, is when the defense steps midfield, you have to step up in front of them because it is John Terry and Gary Cahill's responsibility to set the offsides line, and Willian broke it. So the 4 defenders in a line, and then Willian's behind. Like, I blame him. Now, as we move through the sequence, I don't think Courtois reacted to the situation very well. It's a bouncing ball going away from goal. But, the funny thing is, you think about it, Nick, you talked about how Courtois picked up a bit of a knock in the warm-up. All of a sudden, like, it just plays on you. Like, you're like, I don't know if I can get there. I can't really go full out. Maybe I'll just stick my leg out and try to slow him down. It just ended up being a series of bad decision after bad decision on Courtois' part, which obviously ended in a red card. I thought Gary Cahill was so close to being back and ready to help out.
Yeah.
But you assume once Gomes rounds the goalkeeper, it's a one-touch finish in that Cahill's probably not going to get to. So I blame Willian for putting Courtois in that position, and then I honestly don't think Courtois handled it very well on his end. So that's where I stand, Nick. What about you?
Yeah, it was kind of an iffy one. I think that if you look at it from any objective standpoint, in 90% of those types of calls, it's going to be a straight red and it's going to be a sending off, and that's you have to live with that. I mean, not every call is going to go your way, so I don't want to be unrealistic about those expectations. The 2 things that kind of stood out to me from this moment were it was right on the edge of the area, so there was a call for maybe that to be a free kick instead of a penalty, and then did Gary Cahill get back enough for the last defender thing to not matter? I don't know. I think it was really, really close. I think if any of us were in Michael Oliver's position, that it would have been a lot to ask for all of that information to be processed in less than 3 seconds. So I don't blame him for the call. I think it was more often than not that's the right call, but obviously put Chelsea in a really, really tough position.
I think the more challenging thing is you kind of move off after that is, was Oscar the player to get pulled off in that moment to bring on Asmir? And I think from an impact standpoint throughout the game, we saw. I really thought he might, yank Fabregas off because Oscar was really the only player that was kind of showing some level of light, and we know that he can kind of play backward and defend when necessary.
Yeah.
So I think it was the one move that we made that may have cost us, any opportunity to really kind of close out the game with a goal and try to push for a win versus kind of maybe settling for a tie with a hope at, a kind of crazy goal victory.
I thought Mourinho might do something crazy, and it will sound a little bit crazy when I say this, but with the game that Branislav Ivanovic was having and the shocking, he was shockingly bad, out of position, pinched in too much, left acres of space for Montero. I would have put Willian at right back and taken Ivanovic off, kept Oscar in, because I think at that point you really have to look at your the way your lineup's playing, and either Cesc or Ivanovic were the 2 casualties that could have been afforded at that point for me. They were both extremely poor. I think Cesc was even more poor than Ivanovic, but just nothing. There was no performance coming from them. So, if you take a guy like Willian and put him at right back, you're still going to have a little bit of his attacking flair, and he's fit enough to keep tabs on Montero. But yeah, I was very interested with why Oscar was the casualty when he was the best performer.
So when I tried to rationalize this as it happened. I was talking to my buddy. We were watching the game. He's an Arsenal fan. I really wish we could have watched the Arsenal game today, just to balance things
bubbles.
out. But the way I looked at it was he had to take off one of his three center mids, so Matic, Fabregas, or Oscar, because Oscar doesn't really play out wide as well. Nick, that's an interesting point of moving William back, but I just kind of looked at it as by taking off the attacking mid of that attacking trio in the center, it doesn't change the shape nearly as much. But Dan, you had a really good point of saying, we'll just drop Oscar back and he can play next to Matic. Yeah, I also think that's a good one. Interesting decision. I think that maybe that decision might come back to really have shaped the rest of the game. So it'll be really interesting to hear what you guys think. You're listening to the podcast. Let us know. Do you think Mourinho is right in taking off Oscar instead of potentially Fabregas, who I think we can all agree was a little off pace today? Let us know. Tweet at us at London Blue Pod, and better off, vote. We have a poll on We Ain't Got No History when we post. Vote in that poll. You guys are awesome. We love seeing what you have to say, and we'll revisit it next week and go over it. Thibaut Courtois tweeted after the game, 2-2, red card, not the start I expected. Sad to let the team down on that moment. They fought really hard till the end to win this game. Nick, do you agree? I mean, Chelsea were down a man, but at points you didn't really know.
No, I mean, the thing you're always going to get with Chelsea, and I think the commentary did them justice on this, is that even at 10 men, even at 9 men, I've seen Chelsea fight and come close to scoring some pretty awesome goals. I think the backs against the wall mentality is something that Chelsea thrives on and always has, and especially with Mourinho, I don't think there is any panic, within the team, even though they knew that they were at a sizable disadvantage for the rest of the game. So, credit to the team for fighting. Credit to Hazard for picking it up in the last 10 or so minutes. And trying to make something happen. And, I wish he would have been present for the rest of the game as well. But yeah, I mean, there's just a ton of fight there. And John Terry was making some runs forward, trying to add a little bit to attack. And when you get down to 10 men, everybody has to contribute on the offensive side. So. It was good to see, even Azpilicueta getting forward a little bit.
Well, kind of as we look forward with this situation, we know Courtois is only suspended for one match. Dan Levine at Blues Chronicle tweeted out that it's only a one-match ban because it's a non-violent red card. So that's good to know that he's not going to miss the 3. Thankfully, it'll only be the one, Dan. But that one is Manchester City. And Jake Cohen, at Jake F. Cohen, follow him on Twitter, Chelsea fans, he tweeted a little bit about Begovic's record against Manchester City. Did you see that?
Yeah, so he did tweet that in 9 matches versus City, so at 8 Stoke and 1 with Pompey, he's conceded 12 goals and has had 2 clean sheets and only 1 win. And I think maybe more of that would be associated with potentially the defense and play of Stoke versus, I think, Begovic's stop shot ability. Plus, he also does have the Chelsea champion winning defense in front of him. We might have questions around the level of fitness or performance of one or two of those players, but I think he has a much better at minimum level of play in front of him that should make it potentially a little bit easier to walk into this match versus potentially having walked in with the Stoke team they played with last year or the year prior.
There are a couple of things in play here. If you look at every other mid to low level goalkeeper against Manchester City over the past 6 years, I mean, they're going to have stats like this. I mean, City notoriously are front runners. They play really well against competition they know they should beat. So. When they roll up 8 goals on Stoke or they roll up 7 goals on Crystal Palace, like nobody blinks an eye about that. But Chelsea's a whole different ballgame. So I do put some stock into that, but I think that Begovic has a sizable advantage over the teams he's played City with in the past.
There's no comparison that Chelsea's back line is going to help Begovic out much more than anything Stoke has had over the years. But, it's a good little insight to see. Nick, you made our podcast a little more famous on Saturday thanks to getting us on 101 Great Goals tweet compilation on the Chelsea fans' reactions to Fabregas's poor performance. You want to relive that tweet? Tell us what you threw out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the 65th minute, and Cesc is always a guy that I look to make things happen. Obviously, that is his role. He is a deep-lying playmaker on the team. Someone who, without his influence, we looked, very average last year, in my opinion. He hasn't been right for quite some time, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what the motivation is, or why he's playing so poorly. But I just basically said Cesc needs to step it up. It's ridiculous from a player of his caliber. I view him as a top 10 player in the Premier League easily. I think he's someone who possesses a passing ability like nobody else in the Premier League, and that includes quite a lot of great playmakers. But he has really struggled with the pace of the game. He got caught in possession 5 or 6 times yesterday. He struggled to make any sort of impact from a passing standpoint. Hasn't linked up with Costa for quite some time, which is frightening to think about. And generally has been lackluster in defense. So if you put all those things together, it's not good. And you look at his stats from yesterday. He completed, what was it, 21 of 43 passes. That's less than 50%. His overall, and that was accurate passes. His overall pass success, was really good. But I mean, for me, if you're passing the ball backwards or side to side, we're not really making any inroads. So I don't know what you guys think about Cesc, but I mean, it's just been not really that good to watch.
I think it was a struggle to watch. I think also part of that too was the level of press all of the Swansea attack and midfield had. They were moving in between, whether it was Shelvey, whether it was Montero, Ayew, Sigurdsson. They were all involved in the midfield and really making challenges there and not allowing Chelsea to press beyond for attempt at goal. So I think Fabregas, when there's a lot of action happening in the midfield and it becomes compressed in that area, and he's not able to kind of launch or release Costa or Hazard, and no one was really getting forward enough for him to do the things that I think you were looking to see happen, because Swansea weren't willing to kind of sit back and try to play a more defensive or slower game. They were working on quick release to get Gomez free, to get Ayew forward, to get Montero forward with the pace, and that. In those matches, I think Fabregas can struggle without, the kind of support infrastructure around him.
Well, I think to follow up on that really quickly is, in those types of matches, you've historically seen Mourinho play Cesc in a number 10 role to try and minimize some of that, right? But he's also really struggled there to make any sort of impact, because Willian, Cesc, and Hazard like to come inside. They crowd each other out, and then there's no room on the flanks to exploit any space. So there needs to be some sort of come to Jesus meeting on this, because not everyone can be the focal point in the middle. If that's somebody's role, I think there needs to be some clear definition on if somebody comes inside, that space gets created by other players moving out and making runs towards goal. Because even Hazard, someone who I admire and who I look to for everything that goes through our attack, is really not making the kind of forward runs that you would anticipate. He tracked back and stopped play going forward so many times yesterday that it just looks like he's kind of going through some sort of struggle on his creative end of play. So I don't know what the answer is there.
Well, I think on the opposite side too, you see Willian kind of get that pace forward on the ball, and I think 3 or 4 times he moved the ball forward to the outside of the box on the right hand side, and would just kind of pause and try to do like that 3-4-5 like foot maneuver that he does, versus trying to cross it in or play it back more rapidly to try to take advantage of that forward momentum. And so I think that you're absolutely right that we just aren't connected on what the structure of the attack should be. I think that we're hoping for more improvisation and creativity to happen, and that really was not a strength of ours last season. And if we're relying upon that to be a strength in the coming season, I don't necessarily know if we have the structure of team to take advantage of that.
Well, kind of balancing it all out, I feel like Hazard maybe was a little absent for most of the game, even though he did get the ball quite a bit. I think one big thing that he's going to have to learn, if it's even possible, I don't know, in the last 10, 15 minutes, there's a ton of chances for him to break, but Swansea just chopped him down every time. So there's got to be a way for him to avoid those fouls, because teams are just going to kick him in the stomach like Ashley did this weekend. So I don't know. I guess, what do you think, Nick? I mean, we break at pace, but he's got to stay away from those defenders because he knows it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fine line, and Dan might have touched on this on an earlier pod. There's a fine line between, getting fouled, and setting up some sort of free kick that could be dangerous, and just getting fouled to get fouled, because eventually one of those fouls is going to seriously injure him, and this is clearly a team that's not deep enough to miss him for any amount of time, let alone for something that's avoidable. So, I would love to see, if he's on a break, I would love to see a runner in behind where we can kind of keep play going. And if he gets fouled off the ball, it's a whole different scenario. But sometimes it's just he knows it's coming, he looks for it, he falls down, he gets the free kick, and then it kind of halts our momentum. So, just for his health, I want him to get fouled less. But especially with the run of play and our ability to break on a counterattack, we need to be more clinical on those counterattacks to make any sort of impact this year.
I mean, I think the good news coming from this, Dan, was that Chelsea did show a lot of positives at being able to break at speed and being successful. Part of what Nick commented on, though, everyone likes to go to the middle, is you never have that width to really spread out the backs. But, going forward, there's a lot. But what did you think of Diego Costa today, Dan?
Well, he did play for a full 90 minutes.
Surprise.
However, if it's taken us this long into the conversation to speak about his contribution to the game, it might have been a little muted.
Yeah.
I think positive is he played for 90 minutes without really it seeming like there was any kind of effect to his hamstring. Positive, he has a nice new haircut heading into the start of the season.
Yeah, he looks normal, which is so weird.
I mean, give it some time. I mean, as it kind of heads into winter, maybe he'll grizzle up a little bit more and let the locks start to fly again. I think positive was that he did make some good movement on the ball, but I think that he did not look like he had practiced or played a lot, which I think is a very true statement given what was happening in preseason, the amount of time that he was sitting out prior to the end of last season. So I think that he is probably not 100% where he would need to be to really help effectively convert goals in some of the situations where at the start of last season, and get matches like against Swansea where he knocked in multiple goals. He was not that same level of, I think, fit.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon and I kind of differ on this. I thought that because our midfield was so poor that he didn't have a ton of opportunity to make an impact. I mean, he had a couple of shots that were errant and not kind of his normal ability. But I thought he was active. I thought especially towards the end when we were looking for that winner that he was fighting, even though it wasn't necessarily effective. He was still fighting and giving it his all. I mean, the thing that always troubles me about him is that it's a ticking time bomb. If he takes off, and is running down the flank and something, he steps wrong, I mean, that hamstring could go anytime. So, it's almost his playing 90 minutes is like a really nice bonus for us instead of what we expect from our number 11.
Yeah, I personally thought, like Nick kind of pointed out, that I didn't think Diego Costa fought the way that he has before. I thought that he's maybe a little easy to go down sometimes, or instead of trying to fight to get through a tackle. He just wasn't looking for that today. So I understand he's maybe a little fragile with the hamstring, but it really wasn't the fight that we've seen out of Cuss in the Bass that I was hoping for. But I'll reserve judgment. It is still the first game, but I just kind of was hoping to see more out of Costa personally.
I think with that point that you just made, Brandon, too, with the fact that it is the first game of the season, is that I think with preseason, with the activity or inactivity of the transfer market, and then now this match, there seems to be a lot of overreaction where concern has expanded to, I think, meltdown. It's like the whole nuclear reactor has just like exploded. And I think there's a level of patience that's required. I think that Nick made a very good point on our Twitter account. Asking the question of, is it that that mid-level teams in the league have gotten better? And I think that's absolutely the case. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams that you maybe used to think that they were just they're always going to live in the middle, start to challenge and push up. And I think that some of the teams that are standard top 4, top 5, maybe top 6. Really struggle this season against them. I think that the point total that is required to win versus the last maybe 1 or 2 seasons will be lower, and there'll be more losses and draws than we've seen previously from a winner in the league this season.
Yeah, my point was saying that this morning is that I look at Stoke, Swansea, Southampton, West Ham, those types of teams. That are kind of they've lived in the middle. Everton can be in there as well, but I think that from a strategic standpoint, the way that those teams went out and strengthened their squads before the season started might have been more strategic than the way some of the top 6 have strengthened their squads. I look at we all watched West Ham beat Arsenal today. I think that they've just made the acquisitions necessary to go on and win, and a guy like Payet can make a huge difference for West Ham, where as for Chelsea he might not see the field. So I think from a strategic standpoint there's always more opportunity at the clubs that are in the mid-table, but Dan's absolutely right. The gap from the top 6 to the to 10th place has shortened significantly, in my opinion. And those teams are definitely going to be harder to beat this year. And I think that was part of Mourinho's, overall, pre-match press conferences. It's a lot harder, when Ibrahim Afellay is going to Stoke. It's just a harder table than Spain or Italy or France or Germany. It's just there's a lot more teams with better players.
Let's pull 2 kind of things out from the post-game presser. Obviously, like you're saying, Nick, teams are going to reinforce more this year than what they have in the past because next year's TV deal goes into effect. So the teams have to, guarantee they're around to take that pay increase. Obviously, that money doesn't affect Chelsea as much as the middle teams, and that is definitely why they're scraping. But it's definitely something there. I think that at the post-game press conference, Jose talked about how he has a phenomenal record at home, and I think he said he felt fortunate to have it. It wasn't like an arrogant thing. And at the end of the game, Chelsea were playing a 4-2-3 with Matic and Zuma as the only 2 center mids, and then you're attacking 3 up top with Falcao, Costa, and Hazard. I just wanted to touch on that quick and say that I thought Chelsea's mentality there, down a man and playing essentially without a midfield and going for it, was great. And I thought that the team absorbed the pressure well. Then the second thing I wanted to bring up, and we'll start with Dan on this, is how surprised were you that Mourinho went after his medical staff post-game because they went on the field to treat Hazard, which meant he had to come off, and it put them down to 9 players. Was this a distraction technique, or was he genuinely mad, do you think?
Oh, well, I think he was chasing victory, and I think we will all go to the bat and say that Mourinho is a winner and has an extreme winner's mentality, and if it's not a thought about winning, it's a thought about throwing away your second-place medals. And I think in that scenario, I think part of it is more about that the injured player has to come off the pitch versus having to, an opportunity to stay on, or kind of immediately, center back into the game. So I think that probably is, part of it as well too. I think knowing, Hazard, and I think looking at the challenge, it didn't seem, serious at the time. And I think if anyone's going to have an ability to assess, our players with the amount of time he's been a manager, I think Mourinho, without any doctorate to his name or medical training, is probably the next closest person who could accurately assess some of that. So, fair, not fair, I'm not sure, but I think that it didn't look serious. I think it's more about critiquing the need to leave the field versus the fact that his medical staff wanted to go make sure the player was safe.
To me, this is sour grapes from Mourinho, and I'm not going to make two bones about it. Yes, it's in the middle of it was a nice charge, and the player's down. I get it, but the medical staff has been trained by players faking injuries to go out and assist these players for the last forever. And this is something I blame Premier League flopping on more than anything, because we all knew it was a foul. We all knew that the potential for some sort of knock was there, but the flamboyancy in which some of these players go down, making it seem like they were just knocked out by Tyson, is the reason why these medical professionals have to go out onto the pitch so often. And it's more of a quote on the status of the game rather than it is necessarily the medical staff, because unfortunately this is just the era that we're in. 25 years ago, that would have no medical staff would have gone out on the field, because you just would have been expected to suck it up and play. But that's not the case in 2015.
You're going to tell me that they had a medical staff 25 years ago?
They certainly didn't have concussion protocols, I'll tell you that. So
well, we really don't today either. But anyways, as we kind of wrap up this Swansea game, we did tweet this out, and it'll be interesting to see how this all works out. But the last two times Mourinho started the season with a draw, he went on to win the treble. So we'll just leave it at that and kind of see how that plays out. But in Jose we trust. That's what we said all last year, even in the second half of the season when things got spotty. He's not going to let the players rest on this performance. He's going to demand that they up their level, especially going into a title contender away from home at Man City.
We have to make mention of the fact that we have Jose till 2019, right? I mean, this is the biggest news of the week for me, and something that I think really impacts the transfer market, is that Mourinho on Friday announced that he had signed a 4-year extension. Will be at the club till 2019. All of the quotes coming out of this introductory press conference were very positive. I love the club. This is where I want to be. Kind of the same stuff that we've heard before. I think the bigger impact, Dan, is something that could have a major impact on this year. And something I was thinking about the other day was, with Mourinho committing his future to Chelsea, for the next, it's almost 4.5 years now. I think this opens the doors for, larger scale of player to come to Chelsea, because when a player comes to Chelsea now, I think they're coming more for Mourinho and for Champions League play than for the actual club themselves. It's just the mercenary status of some of these transfers. But with Mourinho having his future committed, I think this opens the doors for a different caliber of player to come in.
So are you saying this is reignited your flame for Pogba next season?
I don't think Pogba is ever going to happen, but I think there are some other players out there who might be taking a second glance at Chelsea, because they know that the prime of their career could be had with the best manager in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I look at it like any type of recruiting that happens in collegiate athletics in the U.S., where the coach has a direct impact on where you will go to play, and players will choose potentially starting at another school versus sitting on the bench or playing, a role position at another school because with talent around them because of who that coach is and what they can do and what type of impact they can have in their career and what type of success they can unlock the door for. And I absolutely agree. I think 4 more years of Mourinho is quite magical, and I think outside of any player is arguably the best signing across all of football in the entire realm of it. No matter what league that happened this summer.
That definitely has to be the biggest news, mainly because we are still dragging our feet on this Baba Rahman. Early in the week, they said that his club were holding out for almost 30 million euros, which is bonkers. And now we see that the announcement is imminent. The next thing you see is Everton finally sets the price tag for John Stones, and they drew 2-2 yesterday. And so it's just been a merry-go-round. But the fact is that you lock up Mourinho. Fantastic. I'm sure every single fan absolutely thrilled, just like we all were as well. All right, looking ahead, Manchester City, Premier League Clash of the Giants, first one of the season, and we're going to go ahead and start it away at the Etihad. This is kind of how Chelsea did it last season, though, right, Nick? Go play all the hard teams away at the beginning of the season, then we get them at home in the second half of the season. That's the way it is. It's really early to see City, though.
Yeah, when the fixture list came out a little while ago, this was, I think, the one on everybody's radar to be looking at early season. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years, this has been the keynote match of a Premier League season. Both of these teams don't like each other. There's quite a bit of bad blood between Mourinho and Pellegrini. There's just immense amount of attacking force from City, immense amount of fortitude and defensive dominance from Chelsea. It's your classic, kind of clash of styles, and going to the Etihad is something that is very, very, very challenging. The fact that last year's bout came with Frank Lampard scoring the equalizer kind of encapsulated all of those raw emotions that we had during that game. But if we think back to last year, playing them earlier in the season away is much better than playing them late away. And we'll kind of see how they start their season tomorrow. But I think this is a good thing. If we have to play them away in any given season, let's play them early. Let's get it out of the way.
Well, plus they play at time of recording tomorrow. So they're going to have a little bit of a shorter week in terms of preparation. We benefit from having played on Saturday and getting that Sunday and Monday time too. So hopefully, given some of the fitness concerns that we addressed heading into this next match, maybe a little extra time to kind of prepare and train will benefit us in what is arguably going to be I think a very difficult match.
Well, the only thing City have been doing, it seems like, are sending players out. They brought in Fabian Delph from Villa. They brought in Raheem Sterling from Liverpool. What a nightmare that was. And then they brought in Bruno Zuccolini, Enes Unal, and Patrick Roberts. They've sent out James Milner left, Matija Nastasic left, Scott Sinclair, and actually Edin Dzeko just left.
Yeah.
And Steven Jovetic just went off on loan. So it's going to be an interesting, City haven't really done a whole lot this summer, but I think that they are going to struggle to find an identity early in the season. So let's see what they've got tomorrow, and we'll go from there. But, like you said, Nick, let's play them away early in the season. That's definitely going to be best case where we're at. So as it stands, what do we think? So past meetings, I guess, in the long picture, we drew both games last season, home and away, and Chelsea only have 4 wins, 3 draws, and 8 losses against City overall. What do you think for prediction, Dan? Let's go ahead and let you kick this off.
I don't think it's gonna be popular, but I'm gonna go. It's gonna be a draw. It's gonna be 1-1 draw. No Frank Lampard equalizer to crush our hearts. But I can't imagine us with a new goalkeeper kind of between the posts with some of the opportunities we have that we'll be able to prevent a goal. But I think given the fitness of Costa and having a team that knows each other, we should be able to manage a level of attack that does take advantage of the newness of City as well too. So I think to go into a point, I would feel very good about that early on in the season.
Nick, what do you think?
If Dan was unpopular, then everyone's gonna slay me for this, but because of the Begovic thing, and it's not going to be his fault. He got put into a really tough situation in possibly our hardest match of the year away. I see City coming out 3-1 winners. We haven't looked potent enough in attack for me to claim a draw from this, and that's just I'm looking back to last April, May too when I make that assessment. It's just not been good enough. So. I don't feel very good about this. I'd rather get out of the way early if we're going to, but please prove me wrong, Blues.
Wow, well that is a bit of a shocker. I'm going to go ahead and just do the Nick prediction and say 1-0 Chelsea. I think that Mourinho's going to go in understanding the situation they're in with Begovic. They're going to pack it in tight and then just hit City on the break. And I think that with City's erratic defending that they're just going to give us one, whether it's Joe Hart just throws it into his own net or Company jumps up and handballs it in the box off a corner kick. Yeah, anything's possible. It'll be interesting what Zabaleta Costa, how that goes, because they got into it, and actually Zabaleta got sent off last year. So definitely a ton of bad blood in this game, like you said, Nick. City have yet to play a game, but as it stands, Chelsea are in 7th and Arsenal are in 20th, dead last.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and take that to the bank while we can. All right, Chelsea fans, that's our week. That's looking ahead at Man City. That's breaking down the absolute roller coaster that was Swansea City. Let us know what you think. Did Chelsea survive with a point? Is that okay? Or is it just everything is falling off the wheels are falling off the truck? Let us know. To wrap it up, Dan, final thought.
I think it's too early to be in crisis. I think that we just got the season back, which I think is enjoyable. It brings meaning to a Saturday or a Sunday or even potentially now a Monday. We'll get Champions League back soon. There'll be the FA Cup to compete for. It's exciting. Like I don't know. I'm glad we didn't lose the other day, but even if we lost, in football is back, and that's just magical. Beyond any other result.
My final thought is based around squad rotation, and I look at this season with again 14 potential players over what ends up being damn near 50 matches, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, and Premier League. Even more 50 to 60 if you get deep in those tournaments. I'm very, very worried about our squad. Eden Hazard, if he stays healthy, knock on wood, will play every match. Costa will not play every match just due to fitness. Our back line will do the best they can, but even as Piliqueta and Ivanovic and Terry and Cahill need rest at some point, and so we're going to have to be strategic there. And I'm really, really worried about our midfield and striker situation. I think we need a reinforcement for Cesc. There was a rumor that we made a very substantial bid for Koke from Atletico Madrid, and that did not go through as they don't want to sell him, and we haven't really fulfilled the striker potential that Costa has. So very, very worried about that, hoping that there are some late transfers that kind of fix all these issues. Either that or we really let our youngsters go and try and make an impact this year.
My final thought is I just want to thank everyone who's been helping us out on the preseason tour. You guys have been fantastic. Now the season has started, so we're going to shift the focus from the U.S. fans to all of you in London. Continue to tweet us pictures, post videos on YouTube. Let us know what the atmosphere is like. Rory and the team at Chelsea Fans YouTube channel have been doing a fantastic job, but continue to let us know what it's like. We really need that is people who can't go to Stamford Bridge every other weekend. So continue to help us out, Chelsea fans. So until next week, Chelsea fans, keep the blue flag flying high.
Chelsea are the champions. Their third title under Mourinho. They're fourth in the Premier League. They're fifth in all, 60 years after the first. The Blues, by far the best of the bunch.